Okay, so this is the bonus content for the Vinnie Explained lesson, where I'm going to show you how I took this full transcription and memorized it and learned to play it on the drums. So this video is about how I transcribed it in the first place. So I saw the clip posted on YouTube. Here's the lick again. Okay, it's very fast, we know that. So, the one thing that I noted from this is that there's very little at the beginning. Just look how much of the band we hear before he starts the solo. It's not very much at all. So there's like half a note or something, just a little bit of a sax riff, and then you hear him start, and we can tell this is paradiddles. I think I basically had an idea that that was what was going on, but it's very fast, and if you try counting through it, it's really easy to get lost. And the difficult thing here is that we don't know where his one is because we have no idea what the band was playing before. If we had a few bars of groove, we'd be able to lock into the tempo and where the one was, and transcribing will be a lot easier. But as things stood, I had no idea. So the first tip is on a YouTube video, you have this little gear icon. And if you click on that and you click on speed, you can watch this at a quarter speed. So let's watch Vinnie play this solo, or this, yeah, it's an 8-bar solo really. So we'll watch him at a quarter speed. So you can see what his hands are doing the whole time. It's a really good camera angle for that. There's the final lick. 1. So what I knew was that crash is on the 1, and you can kind of then infer that the final snare drum is on beat 4. So he has this big lick, 4 and 1. So, because I didn't know where this started, I basically transcribed this without any kind of time signature. So, this really works with my method, which is to transcribe into a grid. So, if we watch a little bit of this again, basically the note rate through the whole solo is the same. Here we go. Dun, dun. Duggy diggy duggy diggy duggy diggy duggy diggy duggy diggy duggy diggy. It's all at the same rate. So because we can see what his sticks are doing and we can pretty much hear what's going on, it's not that difficult to then transcribe that onto a grid. So I do this in Cubase. I have an old version of Cubase. It's Cubase 4. I assume the new ones are the same. And the reason I like Cubase so much is because it has a drum editor, and the drum editor looks like this. So on the left you have all the different drums, and then you have a grid which you can divide into 16th notes or 32nd notes or 16th note triplets or whatever it is that you want. So 32nd notes for this example, and this is better in my opinion than the piano roll in Logic because we don't have to think about note lengths, we're just drawing in hits on drums. And I basically then have this set up so that I can program in by clicking in the grid, and then I can launch the score editor, and I have the score editor set up to display the rhythmic notation in the way that I like it. So there are a lot of settings in order to do that. And I talk in great depth about this in the Gary Novak solo workshop lesson. So if you go to joecrabtree.com and click on the drum lessons link, you'll see this page and scroll down until you see Solo Workshop Gary Novak Part 1. And that's a free lesson. And if you download that, I talk at the beginning of the lesson about how I transcribe into Cubase. So you'll see all of the details and the settings in that lesson. But what I wanted to mention specifically about this video, this Vinnie video, is that the way I did it in here was I just started writing in what he was playing. And so I could tell that it started with a paradiddle. So I just wrote in Down here, I just put in the 4 notes, and these are all on the snare. So 1 E and 2 E and I knew that I had to fill every one of these items on the grid. So I ended up with this whole solo section, and this snare drum here was the last note of his fill, digga 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 bap, and then 1. So I had to just shift this whole pattern. I selected everything and shifted it until this 1 was on the 1, and wasn't until that point that I knew where this whole solo started. So once I'd done that, I went right back to the beginning and looked at where this paradiddle started, and it actually starts on the and of 4. So I would never have guessed that from watching the video, but basically that first paradiddle, so we're watching it very slowly, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 and 11 and 12 and 13 and 14 and 15 and 16 and 1. So 16 beats there, the way I was counting it, but basically it's 8 bars of 16th notes, because they were 30-second notes there. But I just wanted to show you in this video that I transcribed this without knowing where the 1 was. And if I tried to do this straight to notation with a pen and paper, I would have ended up with something that, if I'd guessed where it started, it could have been all completely out of sync. So I might have thought that paradiddle started on beat 1, and so I'd write that, and then I'd get to the end and realize that he came in on the crash on the and of 1, and it would only be at that point that I'd realize that I'd got it wrong, and then I would have to basically look at that notation and figure out how to move it all backwards. So doing it on the grid, it was very easy, because once I found the end part, I could write in that that's the 1, and then I can just work backwards, and every 8 spaces in the grid we go back is a quarter note. So that's the 4th quarter note, that's the 3rd, that's the 2nd, that's the 1st. And so you can then translate the grid into notation. So as I say, check out the Gary Novak solo workshop for more details about how I set up Cubase, and I'll also link to a lesson that I have that kind of shows you in real time how I transcribe other things when there is a click and when I know where the pulse is, and how I turn the grid notation into actual musical notation. So that covers how I transcribed it, and the next challenge is to then learn to play it from the notation, which is basically a memorization task. And in the video lesson for this, I'm going to show you exactly how I broke it down and memorized it and made it something that seemed, in the end, kind of easy to play. So that lesson is what's up next.